So, this morning's gospel is of a great banquet. Now, I don't know what image you have in your mind when you think of banquets, but because of the context of the gospel, I have two rather strange images stuck in my mind, one from the big screen and one from the small. And so from the big screen, I'm taken to the banqueting hall of Hogwarts Castle. The first film, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, where the great and the good are all sat at the high table, and then from the front, leading backwards in the banqueting hall, the older students sit, and there at the back are the scrawny new trainee wizards. Because there, the least does indeed become the greatest, as the young Harry Potter ends up being the chosen one, according to the books and the films. The second place is from the small screen, and probably my favourite programme in the world. And that takes me to Nelson Mandela House in Peckham, where Raquel's parents are coming for dinner, and the wheeler-dealing Delboy Trotter has arranged to borrow the table and the chairs from the town hall to increase the grandeur of the occasion. So desperate is our unstoppable Delboy to impress that they have champagne, they have brandy, they have cigars. Raquel cooks a lamb noisettes. However, Uncle Albert is there to ensure that those who exalt themselves will be humbled, for he is left in charge of the gravy. And I would love to sit and watch Only Fools and Horses with Jesus, who surely would laugh with me for the 100th time, as Uncle Albert confuses the Bisto with the Maxwell House. And the guests pour over their roast lamb instant coffee. And after his distinguished naval career, he even sinks a gravy boat. In our gospel reading, we find Jesus preaching and teaching in a real and practical way about what position and status mean, about what humility and generosity really mean. Pride and status are issues in any culture where you get human beings. The ancient Jewish culture is, of course, no exception. Status brings power. Power brings pride. As followers of Jesus, we must be marked by humility and not by status. How we, you and I, operate on a social basis, says Jesus, who we invite to the banquet, says Jesus, are the signs of the type of people we are. Humility means ignoring status, and it means ignoring rank and ignoring class. It means making friends of anyone, anywhere. Jesus has in our passage clearly noticed how the guests have picked the place of honour at the table, the seat closest to the host. Power and prestige in Jewish society resided closest to the chair of the meal. Jesus wants us to see the clear danger of grabbing the seat of high honour, that we might only be moved to the seat of low status for somebody more important than us, may walk in. We move from the highest to the least. How greater, says Jesus, is it to take the seat of lowest order and be promoted, to move upwards. Honour is not a thing to be seized in the kingdom of God. It is to be awarded. God honours the humble. Jesus expands the picture by asking that his listeners invite not those of high status to the meal, but those who could never repay their kindness. Hospitality is not about payback. It's about giving. All are equal. And at this table, we come today to another banquet, to share again in the Last Supper that Jesus shared with his disciples. And at this table, the poor and the powerless and the rich and exalted are equal. There is no hierarchy. Humility is the key. As Jesus said in Matthew's Gospel, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Some years ago we went to a big Christian festival with friends. And one of the highlights of the day at this Christian festival was to gather together in the evening for worship. 6,000 Christians worshipping together is a phenomenal experience. And after the worship, the preacher would stand up. Can you imagine? You think you're a difficult crowd, trying to preach in front of 6,000 people. I remember one night particularly where the preacher talked passionately about how we were called. He challenged everyone to look at their lives and their circumstances to see what we could do for God, how we were to respond to Christ. He was preaching from the book of Esther and talking about her calling and how that might reflect in our lives. And afterwards, over coffee, a friend spoke to me and said, "That was great. He's such a good preacher, but it really isn't for me." And I asked her why. And she simply said, "I'm not like you, Dave." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Well, when I go home, I will still have the children to feed, the house to clean, the washing up to do, and a job to rush out to first thing the next morning. You see, the problem is, Dave, my life isn't like yours. It's full of," and I always remember her phrase, "kitchen sinky type stuff." It's not for me. And I replied to her, "If it's not for you, it's not for anyone. For all are equal, whether our lives seem to be full of very exciting things or even just kitchen sinky type stuff. We are all equal. We are all called by God, and we can all offer that love, that care, and that hospitality." This story, this event in Jesus' life, recorded by Luke, helps us all understand that we are one in him, that we are all equal in his sight. And as we come to the table, there is no place of honour other than his. There is no greater seat. And as we look around us in our community, in the congregation today, in our world, we will see people of all walks of life, and remember that they are all invited to the banquet. All invited to sit next to us. Our gospel reading helps us understand that bigger story is about us and for us. That's the story of Christ's birth, his incarnation as a human, his life, his teaching, his very real death on a cross to defeat sin, and his very real bodily resurrection that defeats death and evil. And so this morning, shortly, we too come to a banquet. And it will not be the baronial splendour of the dining room at Hogwarts, nor the over-exaggerated dinner in Del Boy's flat. Yet they are connected, because among us all, the least is first. Humility reigns, and there is no place for airs and graces. The banquet, however, we come to is so much bigger, and it celebrates the bigger story, for it is the meal that Jesus gave us. So come. For however God created you, and whoever God created you to be, he created you, me, us, equal. Be humble, so you can be exalted. There is no place for one-upmanship here. For after all, sisters, brothers, we are the children of God.